I still remember every single detail of my first viewing of The Force Awakens. The rainy day, the 3-hour wait in line, the palpable energy in every single person's body, and that goddamn intro. Then the clapping. Every time a new character walked in, a swarm of cheer flooded the theater. It was a special experience, and everyone knew it. But even after the hype and excitement, I still feel like Episode 7 was the best film I saw in 2015, purely because of its manipulation of nostalgia. It didn't feel cheap, or like it was using fans. It felt warranted. It was exactly what we as fans needed, a true sequel. One that didn't just take the ideas of the past and rehash them, but one that also brought an equally amount of fresh ideas to the series. One that played around with the past and the prestige of the series to tell a new story. Sure, there were Skywalkers, but then there are also BB-8s. For every old idea, a new one. The give and take. It might be sacrilegious to say, but while Star Wars had a profound impact on my childhood and love of film, Gears of War almost had the same amount of influence on my love of gaming. They might not be on the same critical level, but they both meant and still mean a great deal to me. And that's why, fast forwarding almost a year to the release of Gears of War 4, I felt the same excitement inside of me, albeit a bit more subdued. It's like seeing an old friend. Granted, the last Star Wars films were a decade apart, it still felt like forever since I've seen a new Gears of War title. After a drought of almost half a decade, except for Judgment, we don't talk about Judgment. The fourth installment was revealed at E3 2015 and immediately looked different, but also very familiar. During the demo, the blue glow of the Cog's armor is more than visible. It's iconic and treated as such. Visually, it's a focal point, but in the game, in the demo, nothing is the same. No familiar characters, no mention of Locust, no curb stomping, but that armor draws the eye. And under that armor was just a couple of quippy kids.
Hey, there's water here.
Sure that's safe?
It's just rainwater.
Yeah, with stuff floating in it.
Let's assume I'll live.
No battle-hardened Marine, just some kids trying to survive the night. Marcus Phoenix, the main character of the previous titles, was always the straight man, rarely even cracking a smile. But this was different. The featured characters didn't feel like killers or serious dude bros. They felt like real, natural humans. And that was new. We were used to larger-than-life representations of people in this series. We weren't used to a true disparity that was focused on in the demo. We were used to huge guys killing aliens and high-fiving. And you'd think that this change would make people run to their keyboards with passionate critique, but instead of causing outcry and anger, the reaction was excitement. The new development team, the Coalition, was able to take the series and instead of pandering or being different for the sake of it, they took the series in a necessary direction, forward, and we all noticed. That's the distinction. There needs to be purpose for a sequel, and it changes. And that's the reason why the large majority of sequels nowadays feel needless. There's not a true angle that you can spin the purpose for these sequels that doesn't scream corporate cash. Most sequels feel forced because of this. But even if it is forced, people will be excited, they'll spend their money, they'll consume it, and then they'll hate it. But the hate part doesn't matter. It just matters that they first laid down the cash. That's precisely the reason why we have so many sequels, but why more specifically, we have things that I like to call delayed sequels. No, I'm not talking about Duke Nukem Forever, a game that took a decade plus to come out. I'm talking about Dumb and Dumber 2, or Zoolander 2, or to a certain degree, Uncharted 4 and Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. And of course, now Gears of War 4. These are stories that pick up years after where the original story leaves off. Sometimes the title is made decades after the original was released, or sometimes just a few years after, but the idea stays the same. All of these take different approaches to the delayed sequel, but Gears of War takes the notion and executes it to a T, almost perfectly in the gaming format. The thing that stands out about Gears is how simultaneously it relies on the past of the series while running forward as much as possible. The opening focuses on the past flashbacks and getting you resituated with a very particular Gears of War control scheme. But after that, nothing. You're not Marcus, Barrett, Cole, or Sam. Instead, you're Marcus's spiteful son, JD Phoenix. He has a shady past and is helping out some settlers get some supplies with a few friends while shooting some robots. That might sound really different, but it was perfect. JD needed to be an outsider to the mess that awaits him, and so did his crew, because just like most of the players going into the fourth game, they haven't played a Gears in what feels like forever, and that return to a franchise could be jarring to many. So playing and communicating with a group of fresh eyes makes that landing back on Sarah infinitely less harsh. But in a storytelling sense, that opens up the floodgates for endless creativity. Since these characters are new, they're able to see things veteran players know from previous titles and be confused and interested by the past. Because in a game like this, the past holds much more importance than a regular continuation might. It's the key to everything.
Oh, you used to ride in these heaps, huh?
They weren't so bad. A little cramped. It broke down all the time.
That sounds like they were pretty bad.
Yeah, maybe.
Gamers are invested in this universe already. If this wasn't a sequel, no one would care what JD Phoenix was up to as a child. It just wouldn't matter. But the fact that this is both an established franchise and has brand new characters, it's a win-win situation. And this is executed with absolute grace. The characters are on point, dialogue is gripping.
You're terrible at rock, paper, scissors.
How can someone be terrible at rock, paper, scissors?
Easily, because you always pick paper.
Do I?
The past is weaved in magnificently, and the gameplay additions are masterful. But the one thing it isn't is original. All of that I've described just now has been done before, and somehow on a larger scale.
There has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
In episode 7, the film picks off decades after the original. You have a new character that has relations to a previous character. Each and every character has pasts that are very interesting, as well as holding likely keys to the rest of the series. Old characters and items return, while new ones flourish, as well as opening up the franchise to go places it has never been able to go previously. Seems familiar? This isn't a bad thing though. It's actually kind of brilliant. This is a formula that, while unique, is new enough to have room for creative playing around and tinkering, and it hasn't been done to death. And while it may seem a bit on the nose if you play the game with this in mind, the game itself and what it does for the future sequels is magnificent, and sets up a Gears of War that's able to go places that Epic Games was never able to. The previous Gears always dealt with the Locust finally dying at the end of every game, but Gears 4 doesn't. It demands more from the universe and expands the ends of the storytelling massively, even if it does match up fairly dead on with The Force Awakens. But that template works, and in the case of Gears of War 4, managed to improve and change enough to reinvigorate and jumpstart a franchise for a new generation, even if it isn't the most groundbreaking thing. But I'll take this new game over chainsawing the same Locust over and over and over, just like I take The Force Awakens over blowing up another Death Star. Oh wait, I mean...
Maybe I'd be better off in hell. Tables do turn and labels do burn. The second they ask you to sell your soul, don't you do it, don't you fold. Say that and be bold, cause all them stories you told.